exciting one, I feel like. It's about camp, and a lot of us have just finished the camp season. Some of you were at camp this summer. My daughter was at Camp Shalom this summer. I heard a lot of give it up for Camp Shalom. A lot of good camp stories, just walking around to the different tables. So hopefully you had a few minutes to talk a little bit about just your camp experience to the people next to you as we were waiting. Always fun. So I have a confession. I didn't go myself to sleepaway camp. I know.
The horror.
I know, the horror. Which is really ironic because the whole time I was principal at the religious school at synagogue, I pushed adamantly for every one of our kids to go to sleepaway camp, and I thought it was the most important thing, and I still do. Probably in part because I didn't get to go. And I remember sitting at Linda Raven's house as a kid, and she had a big thing going on about Camp Young Judea. And I was so excited. And my mom and dad, good parents, they signed me up, they put down the down payment, and a few weeks before, crying hysterically, I'm not going, I'm not leaving you, I will not go to sleepaway camp. And they ate that down payment. they kept me home. I know. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, because it probably would have been okay, but I didn't go to sleepaway camp. And in many ways, I definitely regret that. Emily went for a couple of years and did a couple other Vermont things and stuff along the way. So I do feel very close to the camp experience, and I kind of wish I would have gone to some extent. So I'm glad we're doing this, because we get to hear all the wonderful stories about camp that I missed. Anyway, just to let you know, we have some of the Maggids that we're going to have coming up. If you are interested in telling a story, I highly recommend that you see me afterwards. We also have Susanna Reitman here, who has been helping do some storytelling events. There's going to be some coming down the line, which will help you to put together your story if you like, oh, I've got a couple anecdotes, I've got a couple of things going on, but I'm not sure I can pull it together as a story. You can see her up here. She's the one videotaping for me, and she'll be happy to talk to you about doing that. So in October, we have All About Jewish Lexington. I think that one's going to be fun. I think that one's actually booked already, like totally. We've got everyone, so that's fabulous. December. Yeah, I definitely will keep people on retainer. If you're like, I really have a great story about Jewish Lexington, I'm always happy to put you in. And in December, Hanukkah Memories. In March is Feeling Like a Foodie, and that one always goes well because, Jews and food, we're going to have good stories to tell. And then in May is Jewish Matchmaking.
Oh, Lord.
I know, so be thinking about those. There's some good ones. Okay. So we have 4 storytellers. We're going to start with Lisa Miller. She's told a story with us before, and she's fabulous. She is passionate about creating and supporting community through therapeutic programs that foster personal transformation. She specializes in mind-body health. She facilitates cancer support groups as well as healthy, thriving groups, and is an 11th hour volunteer with hospice. In our Jewish community, Lisa facilitates Musar, discussion groups, in women's circles, where participants deepen intuition through expressive arts and find a meaningful relationship with spirituality and one another. Lisa's new book of poetry, Woe and Awe, and she has some signed copies available afterwards if you're interested in one, is about life's inevitable ups and downs, about perseverance through the Jewish diaspora, and about the way God shows up in tiny miracles to put hardship into perspective. Sounds very interesting. Without further ado, here is Lisa.
We weren't that serious yet because I had this on-again, off-again thing with Rick Springfield. But this is a love note to Jonathan tonight in 2024, who is still my summer camp sweetheart. We just celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Surprise, honey.
Uh-oh.
Autumn poem from bed. Fall with me, back to cool nights. Our bosom hideaway under covers and quilts called by a muted sky. I'll hold you, you'll hold me the way we do. 140 seasons round again. Let's play back our summer scenes. The long walk willows, red-winged blackbird benders, setting sun pinks, barrel tones water, the movie of our mundane, buoyant minutes among trees. Fall with me, back to cool mornings too, our flannel nest, campy dreams and devotion, a barefoot bridge from your side to mine. I won't want to leave, the best reason to keep falling with you. Let's go back to 1984 though for a minute, when I was 16, turning 17, and I was sent, yes, sent, to Camp Gucci in Zionsville, Indiana for the first time to be a CIT, where the pay was laughable, and I knew that I'd be enduring a wave of Benetton bedecked Jewish American princesses. Who remembers the acronym?
Yep.
And to top off this sour cake, my parents called it an opportunity. An opportunity. Opportunity with these girls who had known each other for a decade by that time. From Mississauga, Ontario, I would not have imagined that one day I would write a love note to a boy from Kentucky, of all places. Joy knows what I mean. And what would have been more surprising to my fixed perspective teen angst self is that this love note would be to a boy that I met at camp in 1984. A boy I could not stand. But don't feel bad for Jonathan Miller, because it was very mutual. In 1984, he could not stand me either. Let's back up one more frame. One Sunday in January of 1984, after releasing my religious school kindergartners to their parents, the educator at Salel, my childhood synagogue in Mississauga, Ontario, pulled me aside. I was headed out already to tutor a new bar mitzvah kid who still had not learned the alphabet. And since we were all Canadian, I could not be late. But Joy said, just a quick thing. You should be a CIT this year at camp in the States. Applications are open, a bunch of Toronto kids are going. I rolled the eyes at that. You should go because they have a bus and it'll grow your leadership skills and you'll be with Jewish kids all summer and we all think you should go. Not, thank you for thinking of me. Not, when is the application due? Not, who is the we, thinking of me and my leadership skills. Instead, my 16-year-old brain responded, what does it pay? Joy Wasserman was used to limited perspective teen angst, teen looks and attitudes, and took a pause and a breath. I could definitely see the oy vey in her expression and remember it still. Let's focus here. You're not going for the money, Lisa. There are a lot more important things to do this summer than work at Burger King. Later at home, my parents had already heard, so Goldman Union Camp in the States, honey. Salel will pay for your travel on the bus with the Toronto kids. It's so exciting, and isn't it so nice that Joy and the rabbi and Ella all think it's a good idea for you to go? I'm not going. I can't afford to blow my entire summer in a cornfield. As you know, I am saving up. Whatever you're saving for can wait, said my father and my mother. You're going to camp. Then the words no teen wants to hear ever, but that I heard myself saying to my 15-year-old nephew last month when he visited. It will be good for you. My response, no way. And then my mother did the thing, her secret weapon, which my sister Fran only knows through witness because as a middle child, she only ever observed it. She pulled out the secret weapons, the finger tone, the staccato voice. You are going, that's the end of it. And then she said some things in Spanish, her mother tongue that I will not repeat. Where would I be without Joy and Rabbi and my mother today? Without my mother's secret weapons, where would I be? be in Kentucky. But the wise adults of my world turned out to be right. And the summer of 1984 also turned out to be pretty right. My camp kids were 9-year-olds who adored me. A cute boy from Cincinnati thought I was cute and asked me on the Shabbat walk and became my boyfriend that summer. I was young sport captain, even though I was only a CIT and it was my first summer there. And I managed to get through the entire summer without having to work directly with Jonathan Miller. He was the only boy who clearly did not think I was cute or smart. I mean, he wasn't totally off. I really had the teen bandwidth of a teen, and my teen girl beliefs had their own aura that preceded me into most rooms. But by 1985, we had both grown a little, and we had to work together, and he realized that I was so much fun. He realized I had a brain. I realized he was funny and smart. And I also could admit by that point that he had pretty cute, tall boy legs. And by the winter of 1985, we'd been keeping in touch, and I was invited to his New Year's Eve party here in Lexington, Kentucky. Now, that was an exciting invitation, and I took on extra babysitting gigs and extra bat mitzvah tutoring gigs so that I could afford the trip to Columbus, Ohio, where I'd meet my then boyfriend, Steve, and where we'd drive together to Lexington. And that is when I learned that kids in Kentucky drink a lot of alcohol. And also that Jonathan Miller, my friend, was pretty popular and a solid guy. Penny Miller did not like it when teen girls and their boyfriend Steve discovered the unfinished, cobwebby, dark basement because it was a really good makeout spot. But 6 months later, in 1986, Steve did not return to camp, but Lisa did, and Jonathan did. And we worked together on various programs and cultivated more of a friendship. And on July 24th, Jonathan's 19th birthday, when we each were permitted a full 24 hours off, we drove from Zionsville back here to Lexington, Kentucky, where corn gave way to the rolling, gorgeous green farms, where a home-cooked meal would be, and where we could each finally wash several loads of laundry. At dinner that night, Jonathan's parents, Penny and Bob, and his younger sister Jennifer asked, "So, how's Steve?" She could not have been happier to discover that there was no one in my life who could hold a candle to her Jonathan, and we've all been together ever since.
Early Sex. She is the author of Theme Sequence and Descendants of Eve. We have lots of authors here, this is great. She's the editor of The Why and Later, a collection of poems about rape and assault. Her poems and stories have been included in the Best American Poetry series and read on NPR's Selected Shorts. She currently works for the Jewish Federation of the Bluegrass and teaches yoga at Wildfire Yoga. Carly.
So my romance is a little bit more short-lived than Lisa's. So here we go. There's nothing sexier than watching him daven. The kippah, the tallis, the trees sway, the gentle kiss of Shabbat evening wind and sunlight beaming down through the grove of trees in the outdoor chapel. It really feels like God is here. But don't worry, I'm camp staff, so there's nothing overtly wrong with what I'm thinking. I'm 25 after all, and he's Israeli, so isn't this the point of Jewish summer camp? For Jews to fall in love with each other, or rather, for all of us to fall in love with ourselves and with being Jewish. My camp romance blossomed, as many did, and I think we both knew what it was. I remember one day we were taking a walk around camp and talking about our lives outside of camp. I told him I was a poet and a writer and loved books. He said he only read magazines and could really only manage a paragraph before he got bored. But for that month, it was perfect. Camp taught me that anything is possible, even when there's staff. There's still that magic. The way time extends. How one camp day is like 4 real world days. And even though we were the ones taking the kids stargazing and telling them stories about the candy tree and being the ones who hung the canteen candy bars on the tree outside our cabin, the magic was still there for us almost grown-ups, as we were the ones who knew that someone had to create the magic of camp. When camp ended, we exchanged a few emails, but then Harel faded into a story, my Israeli romance. His name meant mountain of God, and he was. And then, whichever girlfriends I was telling the story to would erupt with laughter, gasps, and elbow jabs. And that was that. Until October 7th. When I reached out to everyone I knew in Israel, my cousin David, and some friends who had made Aliyah, my PJ library colleagues. For months, I searched their social media feeds, trying to piece together a narrative that everyone was as safe as they could be. I wrote to Harel, even though I hadn't spoken to him in over 20 years, since I couldn't find him online. And almost a year later, we are still exchanging messages every now and again, supported by Google Translate, about our families and lives, since of course his English and my Hebrew are about on par with each other. It's not romance we are rekindling, but the familiarity of peoplehood, culture, religion, values, something so much larger that we want our kids to feel. His daughter is 9, mine is 6. As a kid and even camp staff, the magic that was there was that there was this place away from the world that became a world. But now, as an adult and as a parent and as a Jewish professional, I see how significant these touch points can be. I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am when I hear Ruthie singing the song she learned at Camp Shalom, her Gaga victories, and making a fast friend that last week of camp that she insisted needed to be at her birthday party shortly after camp. And then there I am, small again, on Crazy Hat Day at the JCC day camp at the Youngstown, Ohio JCC, playing Gaga in the racquetball courts, or getting my first French kiss in the Ohalim Moedon at Camp Wise in Chardon, Ohio. I walk back through the map of what made me fall in love with myself, with Judaism, and perhaps a few men along the way. The Youngstown JCC, Camp Wise, Camper and Staff, BBYO Beaver Camp in Mukwonago, Wisconsin, the March of the Living, working for BBYO and B'nai B'rith International, and staffing camps at B'nai B'rith Perlman Camp. I see how all of these steps, these moments, these experiences have gifted me friendships, connection to a peoplehood, rituals, traditions, and how this is what I want for Ruthie and for all our children. I hope for her to have her own quintessential camp songs that take her back, and I kind of secretly hope it's Closer to Fine by the Indigo Girls, or perhaps singing I Swear I Share My Bra in the beer cot, and even her own camp love story, or really several, but most importantly, that camp shows her her own magic, and the magic of being Jewish. Really good.
Okay, Heidi Simons grew up here in Lexington and is currently a 5th grade language art teacher. Growing up, she attended Camp Vermont, Wisconsin, for many summers, and in fact still returns each summer because she can't get enough of Jewish summer camp. Woohoo! Heidi's married to Matt and is a proud mom of 2 beautiful kiddos, Adina, who's 6, and Ezra, who's 3. Heidi, take it away.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm going to try not to look at my paper, but I'm probably going to look at my paper. I also teach children all day, and they're a very different audience than grown-ups. So if it gets too teachery, just give me like a hand signal or ear pull and let me know. So I'm going to talk about role models today. And I'm going to start by talking about my role model, And maybe if you've met her, she's your role model. Every Jewish kid's answer, their mother. She emanates compassion and kindness, and she's secretly really funny, especially if you stand close to her at a meeting or at a party or something. And I'm going to talk today, my story is going to be about guidance and mentorship and supervision a little bit as it relates to my experience growing up at Camp Vermont in Wisconsin. So, growing up Jewishly in Lexington, Kentucky in the 80s and 90s had its ups and downs. Lots of really amazing moments. I was very involved in the synagogue growing up, but it was hard. There were times that it was really hard. Having to explain every single fall to my teachers and to my classmates why I missed so much school right away, right after school starts. And like, which one's the one where you don't eat and which one's the one with the apples every year. You know, at 6 and 7, I was the emissary of the Jewish people to my friends who didn't really know any other Jews. I had to explain why I didn't have cheese on my hamburger at a dinner party, or that I couldn't go to the soccer game on Sunday morning again, still, because I still had Sunday school. I have a very clear memory of, we moved to Lexington when I was newly 6 from Miami, Florida. Lexington, Miami, roughly the same Jewish population. And I came home after playing with some neighbors and said, "Mom, what's hell?" That's where Amy says I'm going. So every parent in the room, just every adult in the room just went, "Oh God," I saw it on your faces. I didn't understand what that was. I hadn't experienced that. And I bet lots of people growing up in Lexington or in similarly small or similarly Bible Belty places had similar experiences growing up. But camp, Jewish camp, I did not have to explain to anyone why there was no cheese on my hamburger. All these weird Jewish songs that no one else in my life knew, they also knew. And it was this amazing moment of Jewish experiential living. I didn't have to explain that piece of me to anyone, they all knew. And camp today still is one of my most formative Jewish experiences, shaped by role models and my counselors growing up. So I started as a camper in 1999, and I had this amazing person named Rachel Zivick. She brought with her a Ninja Turtle sheet, and we were 11, and we were like, that's so cool, because it's like, we're old, and that's like for little kids, but like we were in on the joke. And she brought out the Ninja Turtle sheet when we needed to have a cabin meeting to talk about how we weren't doing our nikayon jobs, our cleaning jobs, or we weren't passing the juice down the table fast enough in the chadar ochel, or there was some kind of issue between campers, between kids in our cabin. She would bring out that sheet, and we knew that it was going to be something serious. But what an amazing way to build that community in our cabin. She was warm, she was funny, and though I did have Jewish role models here in Lexington at home, growing up in a synagogue, she was the first one who was like unabashedly, dorkily, just like in love with Judaism. She would take her free time to like learn Torah and study Hebrew with the Israelis in camp. And I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't seen such passion for Judaism. Actually, as I was practicing my story, this made me a little bit tear up, so we'll see how I do. At the end of the summer, that was just 4 weeks that summer, she created for each kid in our cabin, she learned our Hebrew names, and she made a beautiful piece of art that had our Hebrew name and its origin from the Torah or the Tanakh, and like had a piece of Torah that had our Hebrew name in it that also was about us. So to be seen in that Jewish way, I remember actually, I vividly wish I had that art piece with me still. I wish I had it somewhere. My Hebrew name is Chava, who's Eve, who's of Adam and Eve. And the pasuk that she chose, the piece of the Torah that she chose was about someone being a mother to all
and I've always kind of just been that way. But to be seen by her Jewishly, and as this awkward 11-year-old, she saw that piece of me and she understood that Jewish part of me. Same summer, now when you're talking about mentorship and role models, sometimes we learn the most from those who teach us what not to do. Julie Farby, vivid memories of her coming and waking us up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., after what I know as an adult of like a wild night of drinking and like doing whatever at the secret boat landing near camp where everyone went to like drink and make out. And I remember her teaching us in those 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. wake-ups about how to pull on your really tight jeans. And she did this like, I'm not going to do it, she did this like stripper move where she like made her jeans a little bit looser. And like as a parent, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that I experienced that at age 11. Alas, it was memorable. I remember it now. And I remembered not to do that later. Fast forward to 2003, I had these two counselors, Allie and Jacqueline, who were actually cousins. I'm not sure that they were supposed to be together in our cabin, but they were. And we spent the whole summer laughing. So we were 15. We were still kind of awkward. We had this body odor we hadn't like quite figured out what to do with. We wearing our weird outfits, we couldn't figure out what to do with our curly hair, like brushed out curls. There's nothing like brushed out curls at a Jewish summer camp. But they encouraged us to like just be goofy and be silly and kind of let our freak flags fly. And I remember that I hadn't really known anyone like that who would just get up on a microphone and tell a story from fear, maybe, who would sing silly songs about like things that were going on in camp. And they just embraced us and allowed us to be goofy and silly. And when I was a camper, all of these ladies seemed so grown up to me. Like to an 11-year-old, an 18-year-old can basically like be your parent, right? That's a grown up. They know all the things about the world. They knew what to do. They had the answers. They seemed to be running the camp. Could I ever be that grown up and put together? Fast forward a little bit more, 2006 was my first summer as a staff member. At Camp Vermont, I'm sure many other camps, there's something called Staff Week where they spend the whole week telling you like, keep the kids alive and safe and happy, and you have to like, they have to tell you specific things in a specific way to like check the thing for their insurance companies that they told you the thing in a specific way. And I was pumped, I was ready, and then the day the campers arrived, I vividly remember this visceral feeling of like, they think I know what to do. These people are trusting me to have care of these children. I am the one to take care of them. I am the one who now is supposed to know all this stuff and run all the things. Do they know that I have no idea what I'm doing? And that summer was also a major paradigm shift for me. Going from being part of the magic, someone making the magic for me, that I was now a magic maker. So similar to what you were talking about in the magic of Camp Carly. I had to go from selfishness of just taking it all in and accepting that this place was for me and these people were doing all this stuff for me, that I had to go from selfishness to selflessness and create the magic for other people. At each juncture on staff, I seemed to fool them. I seemed to fool them and make them think that I knew what I was doing. And I actually learned the world's greatest secret. Nobody actually knows what they're doing at each new juncture. We are all just doing our best. We are, as to quote Frozen, which is still very much watched in my household, we're trying to do the next right thing. We're trying to do the next thing that we think is right. Fast forward quite a bit. I took a handful of summers off and went back in 2019. And another major paradigm shift.
That was the first time that I had been to camp as a parent. Addie was newly one. I was part of the camper care team who helps take care of campers. So part of it is staff training, training these 18-year-olds to take care of the children. And it was this full circle moment yet again. I had the chance, I had the opportunity of helping the staff help the kids have the magic. I got to show those counselors that they were now making the magic for the campers. I was shocked by how young they were. Oh my God. As a parent, I was like, these kids are taking care of the kids. I still kind of feel that way. I love camp, but I still kind of feel that way. We see in camp the role of the counselors as helping kids learn how to be themselves, how to enjoy camp, how to love being Jewish. But there's so much learning that goes the other way too. The campers teach the staff so much, and the staff are learning to take ownership of what it means to be magic makers. And making the magic actually becomes the magic as you grow old and gray and withered, and you still go to summer camp every summer. So through my years at camp, I've learned that mentorship is a journey filled with triumphs and uncertainties. The role models who guided me, who loved Judaism, who embraced their goofiness, who brought their Ninja Turtle sheets, who loosened their tight jeans. The grown-up uncertainties I faced taught me that leadership is not about being perfect. It's about showing up, embracing the unknown, and helping other imposters find their own paths. And just as I once looked up to my counselors, I now understand and know that guiding others is just a continuous cycle of learning and growing. And perhaps the greatest magic of all about being involved in the summer camp is realizing that we are all actually figuring it out together.
Okay, last but not least, originally from Chicago, Shawnee Abramowitz is a writer, knitter, and lover of all things Jewish. In addition to rabbinic ordination, Shawnee received her master's degree in Hebrew Bible from the Jewish Theological Seminary. Shawnee and her husband Joseph have lived in Lexington for 3 years. They have 2 daughters, Elisheva, who is 2.5, and Zipporah, who is 7.5 months. Without further ado.
Hi everyone, thank you. So I also want to start by talking about my mom, Ellen, who actually passed away 5 years ago in 2019. And she was all about fun. And especially because she grew up at Camp Ramah in Wisconsin. And she was involved in USY, her local youth group, and she was the Rosh Ruach. She was the head of fun, and she was the person who would get up on the benches and the chairs after meals and rouse everyone in singing and cheering. And when she met my dad, and actually a little bit before at Camp Ramah in Wisconsin, my mom became Orthodox. She started to become more observant, she was learning more, taking on more traditional Jewish practice. And so I grew up in a bubble, and I want to say somewhere between modern Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox in Skokie, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. And so when I was growing up, all the time, my mom would share these little nuggets of her experience at Camp Ramah, her experience at USY. And it would always really, really frustrate me because growing up in the Orthodox world, in the community that I was growing up in, that really awesome camp in Wisconsin wasn't a place that I was ever gonna go. And USY wasn't the youth group that I was allowed to join. And it always irritated me that my mom would sort of brag about this amazing experience that she had, knowing that that was totally off limits, that it was another world that I just didn't have and wouldn't have access to. So I was sent to Camp Mosheva in Wild Rose, Wisconsin, an Orthodox summer camp, and I really struggled to fit in for the first several years of camp. I hated it, I was really homesick. One summer, the first summer, when my parents came up to visit me for Visitor's Day, I just got in the van and sat there for the whole day, and I cried, and I begged them to take me home at the end of Visitor's Day. And my mom, who knew how important and impactful camp was, said, "You're staying, right? You have to stay here. This is gonna be good for you. This is gonna change you." She knew something. And my dad was like, "She seems really sad. I think we should take her home. It's probably better if we take her home." And my mom put her foot down. And growing up in Skokie, in the Orthodox world, I didn't wear pants. I wore long sleeves. I didn't have the coolest, most up-to-date hairstyle. You know, my friends and I, we made it work. We had our version of cool, but we definitely were not. And when I got to camp with lots of other kids who were growing up in Skokie, but in different Jewish communities, I had all the wrong clothes. I was finally allowed to wear pants and basketball shorts and t-shirts, and I spent all year, you know how some people spend all 10 months of the year waiting and agonizing to get back to camp. I spent those 10 months agonizing over having the exact right basketball shorts from Old Navy so that when I arrived at camp, I would fit in. Nothing was right. Everyone seemed to shop at Target for their camp things. I shopped at Walmart. I couldn't, again, these basketball shorts were the fashion. I don't know, Heidi, if that was true for you, but I never found the right ones. I never found the Hanes V-neck t-shirts from Target or Walmart that everyone seemed to need for camp. I couldn't make it work. I really didn't fit in. But each summer, my mother was especially persistent, and I kept going back to camp. And eventually something changed. A summer going into 11th grade, I seemed to have blossomed at camp. Something finally clicked. And that summer, my mom was keen on me pulling a massive prank on my Ada, on my age group, and on my counselors. And so in her persistence, you know, she would write me letters every week, and occasionally we were able to talk on the phone. And every time without fail that we spoke, she would say, "So, have you done it yet? Have you pulled a prank? Have you planned a prank?" I'd say, "No, what am I gonna do? I don't know how to pull a prank, and there's no way anyone's gonna go for it. I'm not gonna be able to pull it off. I'm like just finding my footing here. I'm just starting to make friends, and you are gonna ruin it for me." And eventually we had a conversation where she said, "I have an idea. I have the blueprint for a perfect prank. I know exactly how you're gonna pull it off because it's a prank that I pulled as a camper, an older camper, when I was at Camp Vermont in Wisconsin." So she walked me through it. I said, okay, I think we can make it work. One Saturday night, you know, after all the Shabbat programming had ended, as an older camper, we had late night programming. And our Ada, our age group, gathered for a kickball game. And somehow, I had convinced 5 friends to dress in all black with me. And we were gonna show up at the kickball game and act like nothing was different, nothing was awry. And I also somehow talked a counselor of ours into going along with this plan. And at camp, I guess the other piece that I forgot to mention, which is very important, is that at home, I didn't really interact with boys that much. And at camp, it was a co-ed camp, and we were all friends with each other, we did our activities together, and it was a social experience that I felt very new to and uncomfortable with, but it was also very exciting. But the whole premise of this prank was that we were gonna pull a prank on the boys, which made me extra uncomfortable. So we showed up to the kickball game wearing all black, this small group of friends, and no one seemed to notice. And this counselor came with us, and about halfway through the kickball game, we stole away under the cover of night. No one noticed that we were missing, and we snuck into the boys' cabins, and we stole all of their left shoes. And we walked to the lake, accompanied by a counselor, and put each of the boys' left shoes onto a boat. And the thing to know about my camp at the time was that we didn't have a natural lake. We had a man-made lake called Leech Lake, and it was contained, and you couldn't swim in it. So it was pretty safe to just send a boat out into the water. There was no concern that it was going to end up, somewhere else in Wisconsin or in another state altogether. And we set their shoes free onto the lake. And we were so proud of ourselves, and we came back to the game, and it was as if nothing had happened. And we felt so cool. Like we had pulled this great prank off, and we were able to keep it our secret. And then the boys didn't notice until like the next morning. Long after the day had started, I think someone had said, "Seems like something's off in the cabin," but couldn't exactly pinpoint what was missing, which was, I think, exactly what my mom was going for. And then we sort of revealed what we had done. We sort of celebrated. We were so proud of ourselves. And then the boys retaliated in a pretty cruel way. They, right before Shabbat, which anyone who's gone to camp, to Jewish camp, knows that that's when you get all dressed up, you shower maybe for the first time all week, you wear your best clothes that you've brought, and it's a chance on Friday night to actually show up and impress your crush. And what the boys did on Friday afternoon, they snuck into our cabins and they stole our toiletries. And they hid them. And we didn't get them back until after Shabbat had started. And this was a devastating blow to the social hierarchy of Camp Shabbat. And, when I was thinking about this story that I was going to share tonight, I couldn't help but think about my mom. Because when I started rabbinical school, I had sort of found my way back to the Judaism that she grew up with, back to Camp Ramon, Wisconsin, where I started working as a staff person. And I feel like in all of that time, even though she's gone, this has been a real homecoming for me and for her. And in the camp experience that I had growing up, and especially in the fun and the silliness and the chutzpah that she really encouraged me to bring to my experience at camp, not only made it so I could thrive and fall in love with camp and myself and my Judaism, but also gave me a new way of connecting with her and with her Judaism and what makes Jewish camp so special. And so one of the things that I'm bringing from that time into my life now, and especially as a parent, is just to go over the top with silliness. To scare each other from around a corner, or do little pranks, little things to just keep laughing and keep the joy going. Because I think we all know that that's the thing that we need most right now. And so when I think about camp, when I think about sending my daughters to camp, when I think about what made me me from camp, I just think about that prank. I think about sending those shoes free on that boat on Leech Lake. And it's a story that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life, and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to share it here.
As for sharing a little bit about their camp experience, I feel like we all kind of went to camp a little bit together, which is such a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And thank you for doing that for me too, because I didn't get that experience, and I feel like I got that right now. So I appreciate it. So as I said, we're going to meet again at in October. And please make sure, a couple of things, make sure you take some stickers. This is our new little Maggid logo, and they glow in the dark. So it's not quite dark enough in here yet, but they do, so very exciting. And thank you to the Federation for doing this and putting this all together. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you at the next one. So is there anything